Good morning. Good morning. Glad you are here. We don't have a ton on the call, but that does not matter. We're going to start because you are on time, and we'll let others get on as they will. So good morning. Hope you had a great weekend. You're starting the week off right by being here for the Monday coaching call. I want to just chat with you this morning with the time that we have about the importance of communication and the importance of patterns or consistency. You know, if you think about it, our daily lives, our daily routines, really nothing more than patterns. The way that you sleep is a pattern. The way that you eat, the times that you eat, the things that you eat, the way you brush your teeth is a pattern. The way you drive to work, for most of you, you drive to work the same way every day. Very few people say, oh yeah, I try to find a new way to drive to the office every single day. No, you don't do that. And you don't. Why? Because the fact is that it makes it simpler to go about doing your day, engaging in the things that we have to do every day, if we follow a pattern, right? So it creates simplification for us. You don't have to think about it, you just do it. The other is this, the reason that we follow, patterns is because it really allows for predictability and duplication of outcome. The reason you follow the same route to the office every day is because you know it's going to get you there. I know that seems obvious, but it's true. And we do that with everything in our life in terms of habitual behavior, right? And when I say habitual behavior, habit can be both good and bad. So it's not just that habit is bad, it is also good. I mean, we have good habits in our lives. So I just want you to think about that having a pattern that you follow consistently in life can be a very good thing. In other words, having a habit that you follow consistently can be a very good thing. So at the end of the day, as we're talking about this, I just want you to keep in mind that if you want to get better results in your business of real estate, maybe look at following patterns or formulas. Let me give you an example as to why this is important. If we were to compare a standard Toyota Corolla to a standard Rolls-Royce Ghost, we would look at them both and say, well, they're both cars. The Toyota has four wheels, has four doors, has a steering wheel, has seats, has an engine, right? And so does the Rolls-Royce. But the fact is they're different. The Toyota costs about $23,000, the Toyota Corolla, whereas the Rolls-Royce Ghost costs about $350,000. So obviously there's something different about them. It's interesting, if you take a look at what it takes to build a Toyota Corolla, it takes about 13 hours, whereas a Rolls-Royce, it takes about 6 months on average. So dramatically different in terms of process, and as a result, dramatically different in terms of outcome. Even though they're both cars, none of you would pay $350,000 for a Toyota Corolla. And if you would, man, I got a car I want to sell you. You wouldn't do that. But it speaks to the importance of having a formula, because see, Rolls-Royce follows a formula, and their formula allows them to build a car that allows them to sell it for as little as $350,000 and as much as to millions of dollars for the highest end Rolls-Royce. Whereas Toyota, you would never spend that much money on a Toyota. You just wouldn't, because they're built with different formulas or patterns. So what's my point? My point is that in your business of real estate, it's important that you identify patterns. You will always hear me say this. When you got into the business of real estate, you signed up to be a leader. And the number one skill of a leader is their ability to communicate. See, a leader's job is to find followers, to get people to follow them, to help the follower get to where they want to go, to get to that next level. And you're no different as a real estate sales professional. You're asking buyers and sellers to follow your lead to help them get to the next level, to help them get to the next stage of their life. Well, if you're going to do that to a very high degree, you got to have a process or plan or formulas that you follow consistently. See, the formulas allow for consistency and predictability of outcome. And the most important arena in your business career where you should have that is your communication ability, the way in which you communicate with people. And gang, this concept that I'm going to review with you is something that I have used for years. And it's the reason that I was successful in real estate. It's also the reason that Everest as an organization is successful, because this is something that we talk about and we teach consistently, the idea of the importance of communication, but following the patterns. You look at anybody who's great at whatever it is that they do, you can boil down what they do to specific behaviors. And if you take those specific behaviors and make them yours, then you can become just like the person you look at and admire. I mean, you look at a Michael Phelps, you watch him, you say, wow, it's amazing what he can do. And it is amazing what he can do. And yet we could all learn how to swim potentially as good as Michael Phelps if we just simply did what Michael Phelps did. Now, yeah, I get it. He's long and he's lean, but setting aside the fact that he's 6'4", 6'5", let's just look at everything else in terms of variables. And there isn't one variable that affected his career that you couldn't take advantage of. But you've got to look for the behavior, the patterns, the consistency in behavior that you would mimic. So what are the skills that you would want to mimic in communication to become an expert, to be the person who would be looked at like Michael Phelps in swimming, but be looked at like that in the business of real estate, like that Olympian, that gold medal winner? Well, it comes down to what I call the response pattern. So if you're taking notes, write that down, response pattern. The response pattern is nothing more than a formula that we follow to engage in conversation with somebody. And it works whether it's in a listing conversation, a buyer broker conversation, or it's in a prospecting call. It doesn't matter. Or it could be in a simple conversation casually with another human being in a personal relationship. If you follow this pattern, it'll give you leverage in the conversation that you wouldn't otherwise have, which is exceptionally important, especially when you're trying to lead people, and especially if you're trying to get people to pay you to lead them through a process, which of course we are in working with sellers in the business of real estate. And one of the reasons I want to cover this with you this morning is because, gang, I know it's difficult to get listings in any market, but especially now because inventories are so low and there's a lot of competition. And anything that you can do to separate yourself from the competition, the better. And what we're going to talk about here is something you can't buy in a store. You can't go to a different brokerage and get it. You can't get it from your lender. It is not something you can buy with cash. You absolutely just simply have to learn it. You have to become it. It's the skill of communication. So it's called the response pattern. What does the response pattern look like? Well, let's talk about it within the framework of an expired call. So imagine you're making a call to expired listings. And one of the first things that you would want to do in any conversation, if you're going to start it, is what? And again, this is where I'm going to ask for some participation. You don't need to take your phone off mute if you want to, but you can certainly answer in the chat line. When you start a conversation, what's the most logical way to start a conversation? I know that seems like an obvious answer, but what is it? Maybe I'm trying to trick you. How do you start a conversation? Anyone? Elena says, raise your hand. Wave at them. Yes, but how do you do it verbally? Come on, gang, give me an answer. I'm not going to give it to you. You got to give it to me. How do you start a conversation?
Introduce yourself.
Hey, sorry, John, I made it to where they can unmute, but it muted you, so you'll have to unmute.
Cool. Okay, great. Yeah, so the answer, Russ, thank you. So the answer is yes, you ask a question, gang. Look, the easiest way to start a question is just simply ask somebody a question. You do it every day, multiple times a day in the morning. You ask people, how are you? So in asking a question, it gives the other person an opportunity to talk. So number one, I want you to write down in terms of this response pattern, write down, ask a question. You want to become a better prospector? Take notes on this because I'm going to give you a formula. It's basically a 5-step formula that you can follow in your prospecting, in your conversations, in any conversation, and trying to lead people to get them to follow you. So number one, write down, ask a question. What's the importance of that? What allows you to discover? See, when you ask somebody a question, you get to discover more information about them. See, if I call up an expired listing and they answer the phone, I'm going to ask a question. The question is going to be, aside from introducing myself, I'm simply going to say, share with me, when are you planning on interviewing an agent for the job of getting your home sold? And whatever their answer is irrelevant at this point. I just want to discover what their opinion is, what they're going to do next. So asking a question is about discovery. It allows me to know, okay, which direction do I need to take the conversation? And I know, gang, this seems like really simple stuff, but what we seem to forget is the simple stuff when we get on the phone or when we're asked to prospect. We say, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Well, that's not true. You do, because you all know how to have a conversation. All I'm trying to do is to break this out for you in a formulaic way or in a pattern way with bullet points or numbers 1 through 5. So you see the pattern that oftentimes you already engage in, or maybe you don't exactly, where you need to modify your approach. So number one, you ask a question. And the reason you do that is it allows you to discover. The other thing that it allows you to do is this. Remember, you're the leader. So it allows you to control the conversation. Remember, those who ask the questions control the conversation. And to prove my point, how many of you have asked the question of me since we started the conversation this morning at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in Utah? And of course, the answer is none of you. So who's in control of the conversation? Did you decide what we were going to talk about today? No, you didn't. I'm the one who's in control. I'm asking all the questions. So remember, if you want to be a great leader, if you want people to have confidence in you, if you want people to follow your lead, if you want people to see value in you, then come in with a set of questions that you're going to ask and ask the questions. It gives you control of the direction of the conversation, which is exceptionally important. See, as much as a seller or as a buyer think they understand the process of buying or selling real estate, they don't. They don't. Because they do it maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times at most during the course of their lifetime. You're doing that at a minimum, at least once a year, if not once a month. So who knows more about the process? And of course, the answer is you do. But here's the other thing about asking questions, and this is really critical, and I want you to write this down. Asking questions allows you to build rapport. It allows you to build rapport. The other thing that it does, it allows you to build value. So it builds rapport and it builds value. Asking questions is the number one building block to building value and building rapport. I want you to remember that. So if you're looking for ways to become more competitive, to separate yourself from the competition, which you should be doing constantly, then look to improving the way in which you communicate. Because the single most important value that you can offer your buyers and your sellers is your ability to communicate, period. It's not your sign, it's not your card, it's not your marketing, it's not your gizmos and your gadgets, it's not your super key. It's none of those things. It is your ability to confidently lead people through a conversation. So when you ask a question, you're building rapport and value. Why? What's happening there? Well, you're validating people. You're giving people an opportunity to tell their story. Gang, I want you to remember this. We all have a story to tell. I have a story. You have a story. The people you're want to work with, the buyers and sellers, they all have a story. And they want to express their story. They have wants, needs, wishes, desires, hopes, and fears. They do, just as you do. And if they can find somebody who's willing to listen to them about what they want and need, what they hope for, what they wish for, what they desire, and what they're afraid of, when they find that person and that person listens, it's going to create inevitably rapport. And it's also going to create a great deal of value because that creates safety. See, when you found somebody who's willing to listen to you and they seemingly care about you, there's value in that. See, that's the value. Your value isn't just that you know real estate contracts. Anybody can learn real estate contracts. And once you learn it, you know it. It's fill in the blank. Come on. You don't have to be an attorney. That's why they don't require real estate agents to be attorneys, because it's not that complicated. But the thing that is complicated that we got to work on is our ability to communicate. And I say complicated, it's only complicated to the extent that we don't recognize the formulas or the patterns and then work to really memorize those or understand those. So if you'll take this and memorize it and work it and use it, man, it makes communication so much more simple. So again, number one, you ask a question. And we do that because it allows us to discover, it allows us to maintain control and direction of the conversation. It allows us to build rapport and to build value because it validates people. It gives them an opportunity to tell their story. So you might say, well, I don't know which questions to ask. I'm not going to get into the detail of a script because, gang, a script, there are a dime a dozen. And we have plenty of scripts in the script book that you've been given. Or if you don't have it, get it from your manager, your coach, because we have them. This is not a conversation about learning a specific script. You should, but we're not going to talk about learning a specific script. I'm really more interested in you understanding these concepts and the importance of following this response pattern. So number one in the response pattern, gang, is to ask a question. And then when you ask a question, what's important that you do? You've got to give them an opportunity to what? Number two, to respond. Give them an opportunity to give their answer. Now, this is critical. And we all have to be careful about this because I can tell you for myself, I find myself in conversations all the time asking questions. And then instead of listening to the full answer, because somebody will say something that prompts another question or a thought, oftentimes just a thought, and then my mind goes off on that thought or thinking about the next question that I'm going to ask. How many of you do that? If you do, say aye, raise your hand, something in the chat line, say amen because you do it. Please let me know you're there. Let me know I'm not alone. Anyone? Bueller? Bueller, are you there? Thank you, Jaden. Not alone. I appreciate that. Yeah, we all have a tendency to do that. The fact is that, especially as real estate sales professionals, we feel like we've got all the answers, right? We want to tell everybody everything that we know. And the key, gang, is to slow down, to ask questions and give people an opportunity to express themselves. So step number one is ask a question. Step number two is to give them a chance to respond. So let me just look and see here. Let's get Leslie. Leslie Mitsuchi, are you there? Can you take your phone off of mute? See if Leslie's actually paying attention. Leslie, you there? Leslie, paging Leslie. All right. I need a volunteer because I can't get Leslie to respond. I need one person to volunteer. Who's going to volunteer? I want to role play with you. I'm the agent. You got the easy part. You're going to be the expired listing. Okay, who is it? Who is that?
It's Anna.
Oh, Anna. Okay, great. Thank you for volunteering. I appreciate it. For a minute there, I thought I was all alone, just speaking to myself on a Zoomcast.
That's
Holy
just like
cow.
parenthood though, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm used to it. I've been doing that for 21 years now. So I should be used to it. All right. So what I want to do, Anna, is I'll have you be my role play partner for the remainder of the call.
Okay.
And it's going to be easy for you because you're just going to play the role of the potential seller of the expired listing. But what I want to do is I want to demonstrate each step of the response pattern, right?
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to call you and just you give me your answers. I don't care what your answers are. Just give me your answers. And then I'm just going to, as we go through this, I'll stop at times and explain what I say and why I say it. And then we'll get re-engaged in the role play. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay, cool. All right. So ring, ring.
Hello.
Hello, is this Anna?
It is.
Anna, yeah, this is John Ciet with Century 21 Everest. I'm a real estate broker in the area. And I noticed that your home was listed on the market. It looks like it did not sell. And my question for you is, when you're planning on interviewing the right agent to get your home sold?
Oh, I don't think that I'm going to interview another agent.
Okay, so at this point, you're not really thinking about interviewing another agent. You know, and if I were you, I would feel exactly the same way. Now, gang, let's pause for a second here. Notice what I did. I started the conversation with a question. Then I stopped and listened to Anna's answer. Now, step number 3, and I want you to write this down. And Anna, if you can, just because you were the one who gave me the response and you experienced the conversation firsthand, what did I do after I listened to what you said?
You validated my feelings. Yes, I
Okay.
would feel that way too.
Yes. So step number 3 is to repeat and affirm. So what I did is I took what you said and repeated it back to you, so you knew that I listened. And then I affirmed your right to think that way. Now, critically important. And how did you feel when I repeated what you said and then basically said, you know what, if I were you, I'd feel the same way too? How did you feel?
You were actually listening to me.
Okay. And gang, this is really important. I want you to think about this. If I called up Anna and asked her that question, and she said, you know, we're not planning on talking to another agent. And I said, oh, really? Because, you know, my company sells a lot of homes. And in fact, I've got a great proven plan. I think it would be in your best interest to work with an agent. So what would be best for you, an afternoon and evening? Now, immediately right out of the gate, what I've done is not listen to what she said. And I'm trying to prove her wrong, that what she's deciding to do is the wrong thing to do. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you are keen on getting a call from a telemarketer or a salesperson at home? Just, do you like getting calls from salespeople at home? Anna, do you like it?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I don't.
No, you don't, right? And neither do I. It's we don't want to be bothered in our home, you know, with the sales call. But what makes matters worse is the salesperson who doesn't listen to what you say and then tries to prove to you why you're wrong. So again, we got to be careful about this. When someone gives us an answer, especially when the answer isn't the answer that we want ultimately long term, because do we want Anna to ultimately not talk to an agent? Of course, the answer is no. We want her to. We want her to talk to this agent, to me, right? But the only way that that's going to happen is that, first of all, I listen to what she has to say and validate the fact that she has a right to feel that way. If I do that, then Anna may be more willing to engage in the conversation, at least longer, so that I might be able to give her some reasons as to why we should possibly meet and talk about getting her home on the market and get it sold. So the repeat and affirm, as I call it, that's step number 3, is important. Why do you repeat? Well, because it tells them that you're listening and that you care. Notice what I did. I used her words. Gang, rather than not listening to what they say, listen to what they say. Write down a few key words that they use and then repeat those words back. You don't have to parrot her. You don't have to, if she says, Polly wants a cracker, you don't have to like a parrot, Polly wants a cracker. I don't want you to do that. You don't verbatim read back every word they said, but get the gist of it and select a few key words, especially if they use words that are tied to emotion. If they use words, you hear frustration, and there's a word of frustration, right? Use that word. If Anna said to me, you know, we're not planning on talking to an agent. The last agent made us very frustrated, very angry. We're not going to work with an agent. I'm going to use her words, frustrated and angry. So listen to her words, because here's the thing. Anna has all the answers at this point, not you. She has all the answers, meaning when you ask her questions, she's giving you the answers to how she feels, what she intends to do. This is the point where you should be listening. And if you will listen, then it gives you all that you need to know in order to move forward in the conversation. See, once you've listened and then you affirm it as I did, it lets her know that you're not going to resist her. And if she knows you're not going to resist, then she's likely to be less resistant. Do you get that? See, it's difficult to have a fight when somebody's not willing to fight with you. So when she knows I'm not here to make her wrong, she will likely lower her guard, or at least lessen it, so that we can at least spend a few more seconds or minutes on the phone. Anna, does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense.
Cool, great. So once you've given me your response, now the next thing that I have to do is I have to move from your response to the next step in what I call the response pattern. So gang, what do you think? And Anna, you can answer the question if you know, since you're off mute. what would be the most logical thing to do? Now that I've listened to what you've had to say, what would be the next thing that you would do? If you
Uh,
were me, if you were
Oh,
me.
if I were the agent, I would,
Yeah, if you were the agent.
I would say, well, seller, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, what do you think the reason is that your home didn't sell?
Okay, cool. So what you did, I love what you did, because rather than making a statement, you went back to what we said, the number one building block of rapport and value in any conversation is asking a question. You just simply relied upon and leaned on that, asking more questions, which is really important. There's one little step that I'm going to insert here. So rather than step number 4 being asked another question, put in this on step number 4, transitional statement. Write in transitional statement. Now, what is a transitional statement? A transitional statement is a phrase that we use to allow us to transition from what was just said, the topic at hand, to moving on to a different topic. In other words, asking a different question that had nothing to do with what we just talked about. It's really important that we do that. See, for most people, when something is said that's a little difficult, because that was difficult. She said, look, we're not going to talk to an agent. Now what? What am I going to do? Well, my mind's thinking, what do I say next? What do I do? What do I say next? Oh my gosh, she's listening to me. She's waiting. This silence is awkward. Right? And for a lot of people, what do they do with that silence? They try to fill it. What do they fill it with? How do most people fill that awkward silence?
I would say just talking about themselves.
Well, they go, yes, there's that. But for a lot of people, we hear them do it. It's and ah. And what's just as bad, especially on a call like this, is there is silence without any sort of confident response. See, when you told me that you weren't planning on talking to an agent, I just very confidently just affirmed you're right. I repeated what you said, and I said, if I were you, I'd feel the same way too. At that point, you didn't think I had any concern with what you just said, because I don't. Now, all I have to do is allow us to transition from that topic to something else. So what I'm going to use is a transitional statement. So let's go back, Anna, say the same exact thing to me, to the question that I asked, and then we're going to take it through steps 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I'm going to use the transitional statement. So ring, ring.
Hello.
Hello, is this Anna?
It is.
Yeah, Anna, this is John Ciet with Century 21 Everest. I'm a real estate broker in the area, and I noticed that your home was on the market and that it actually did not sell. And so I'm just calling to find out when you plan on interviewing the best agent to get your home sold.
Oh goodness, we are not going to be interviewing any more agents.
Okay, so at this point, you're not planning on interviewing any more agents. Anna, if I were you, I'd probably do the same thing too. So if you could, now that I know that, share with me. Now, notice what I did. I used the transitional statement. The statement was this: now that I know that, share with me, which was the lead into asking the next what? The next question.
Yes.
Yes, asking the next question. And Anna, it was interesting because as I asked you earlier, what would you do? And you said, well, ask a question. And then you gave a question, which is really one of the best questions that you can ask. Do you remember what the question was?
Why do you think your home didn't sell?
Yeah. And here's how I would change that, because I love the question that you just asked. The only way I would tweak it is this: instead of saying, why do you think, I would say, share with me, what do you think caused your home not to sell?
Okay.
So just the question, when it's asked with a why, it's always looking for a justification, and it can put people in a very defensive posture. And I don't want you to be defensive at this point. I want you to be open to a conversation. So I'm always going to say, so Anna, share with me, what do you believe caused your home from selling?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what went wrong.
Okay. All right. Well, if you had a guess as to how or what prevented your home from selling, what would you say that was? What would be your best guess?
I feel like our agent underpriced it in this market.
Okay. So your agent underpriced it, especially in today's market. Ouch. So let's pause for a second here, because a couple of things have happened. So number one, I used the transitional statement to get on to a new set of questions. Now, the question that I asked was on topic, because the question was, share with me, what do you believe prevented your home from selling? But normally what I would do, and there's nothing wrong with that question, and I love it. It's one of the questions that I ask. what I would do, depending upon the level of resistance that you're giving me as the seller, I might ask a question that's even more off topic, like this. Well, share with me, how long have you lived in your home? How did you happen to pick, how did you happen to pick this area? Had your home sold, where were you planning on moving to next? Right, now that's a great question there. Had your home sold, where were you planning on moving to next? It's now we're not talking about the home selling. Now we're talking about what plans you had in the future, the new home you were going to be in, the new community, the new job, whatever it is, right? So it's important that we recognize that depending upon the level of resistance that you're getting, it's better to ask a question that's further from the topic of meeting for an appointment until you build up enough rapport, and then you can circle back around and actually ask that question again about meeting for the appointment to talk about getting the home on the market. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So so let's just have that conversation. So
Okay.
you just give me the same answer we're not planning on, and I'm going to repeat and affirm, use the transitional statement, then I'm going to ask my question.
We weren't planning on listing with an agent again.
Oh, okay. So you're not planning on interviewing an agent at this point again. You know what,
No.
Anna, if I were you, I'd probably do the same thing too. Well, now that I understand that, let me just ask you, if your home had sold, where were you planning on moving to next?
We were planning on just moving closer to the mountain.
Oh, really? So
Mhm.
closer to the mountain. What's important about being closer to the mountain?
Just the beauty of living here in the Wasatch Front,
I love it. It is a beautiful mountain range, isn't it?
It is.
So do you guys like to do outdoor things, hike and that sort of thing?
We do, and we're into mountain biking and like the kids to get in touch with nature. So it's just important to us to be close to nature.
Okay. All right. So really, it wasn't just about getting your home sold. It was about living a new lifestyle and making certain that you and your family were closer to the things that you want to do.
Yeah, it really was.
Okay. Well, that's it. And I love it. I could see you smile, and I can't even see you, and I can see you smile when you say that, which is exciting. So I guess my question for you is, share with me, what do you believe prevented your home from selling?
There were just some disagreements on price, and getting it sold, and was it underpriced or overpriced, and so I don't really know.
I see. Okay. So there was conversation about pricing. There was some confusion there. And it sounds like ultimately you just didn't have confidence in the situation or the agent. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, that's definitely a
Okay.
fair statement.
Well, you know what, Anna? That is the very reason we need to get together. It's what is so interesting, because I looked, your home was on the market for 6 months to the date today. And while your home was on the market, my company sold over 4,000 homes. So my question for you is this, and it's a sincere one. How many homes do you want to sell?
Oh, well.
Just one, right?
Yeah, I mean, ideally.
Yeah, I mean, you're just yours. You don't care about all the others, just yours.
Yeah.
Well, look, if my company and I can sell 4,000 homes in 6 months, don't you think it's possible for us to actually get yours sold as well?
I would agree with that.
I would too. And that's the very reason we need to get together. So what would work best for you, an afternoon or an evening where we could sit down and actually look at how we can actually get your home sold this time?
Evenings would be great.
Perfect. Let me look at my schedule here. I've got some time either on Monday or Tuesday. Which would be better for you?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, great. And I've got some time either at 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Which would be best for you and your family?
Let's do 5.
5 o'clock. Okay, 5 o'clock on Tuesday. Fair enough. That's great. Well, I'm so excited. So at this point, Anna, thank you. Everybody give Anna a virtual round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
No, great job. But do you see this? The conversation runs so much more smoothly if we have this pattern, we understand which step is next, and then we have taken the script and memorized it, so we don't have to think, we just do. Anna, here's the cool thing about this. See, a Michael Phelps, when he gets on the block to jump into the pool, he doesn't think about what he's going to do next because he's practiced it so much. When that buzzer goes off, he just responds. He knows what to do next, therefore he doesn't have to think about it. And the challenge is for most real estate agents in these conversations, they're constantly thinking about what they need to do next because they don't follow a formula or a pattern. And so, gang, if we want to get better results, predictable and duplicable, what we have to do is make certain that we follow patterns that actually work, and practice those patterns so that when it comes time to actually perform, that when the buzzer goes off, when you're on the block, so to speak, that you don't have to think, you just simply respond. See, your local law enforcement, your police officers, your firemen and women, those people don't think when they do their job, they just respond because they practice it over and over and over again. See, if a police officer had to think each time that they were in a tough situation, right, to the point that, gosh, what do I do next? There are only seconds, fractions of seconds that they have to take action. And if they stopped to think about every step that they were going to take, it would be a disaster, gang. The same with an EMT. Oh my gosh, what do I do next? They have an obstruction. Pull out the manual, say, if there's an obstruction, oh, lay them flat on their back, tip their head back. I mean, you wouldn't want them to do that. It would be a disaster. The patient would be dead. Well, the same is true in our business of real estate. We've got to have these patterns already inculcated, memorized, so that we don't have to think about it. We just simply respond in the situation. So, Anna, great job. You did an exceptional job.
Thank
so,
you. I
gang,
appreciate it.
of course. Let me just ask you, Anna, are you using the response pattern? Is this something that you've been using in your conversations, listings, buyer broker, and your prospect?
I am trying. I am trying.
Okay. Well, that's the key. Look, it's one thing to practice outside of actual conversations. It's another thing to actually try it in conversations. The best way to learn this, just like you learned how to swim or to ride a bike, is to actually do it. You didn't learn how to swim outside of the pool. You didn't learn how to ride a bike watching other kids do it. You learned how to do those two things by actually doing that thing. And this is no different. So, man, keep it up. Keep doing it. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anna, you made it a breeze for me. I appreciate it so much. Have a great day, and gang, have a great day as well. Go out there. Remember, successful people just simply follow patterns, and you can follow the same patterns and be just as successful. We'll see you at the top, gang.